How's everybody doing? You guys okay? Everybody all right? Got food in your belly? You good? Got to go get some lunch, get some stuff. All right, cool. So I'm Kahlief. Today we're going to be talking about activism in gaming. I'm going to take these off because these are hella squeaky. That's not dope. Thank you. I try not to pull these up too high because I'm ashy. So half of them got that. So what is Spawn for Good? So Spawn for Good is a bunch of different things. It's something that we created over at our show. It's called the Spawn Me Podcast. Activist gaming was a term that was coined by a guest of ours called Kishana Gray, Dr. Kishana Gray. She works out of Western Kentucky. So she came on the show. We had a show called The Black Academic. So we wanted to talk about how we combine both the conversations that are happening in academia and how gaming can be used as a venue and vessel for that. So a little bit about myself. Again, I'm Kahlief. This picture, that you're going to see in a second, is my face for most of 2015 and 2016. That's basically how I looked often when you would come up and talk to me about the world and about the state of the world. That's kind of my face often now when we talk about the election, we talk about race relations, we talk about a lot of different things. That's probably me. I was raised and born in New York, in the Bronx, with the Open X, but that's kind of passe. It was an interesting time for me. This is kind of how we got into this space of doing what we're doing today with Spawn for Good and the Spawn Me Podcast. So, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, oh, that's right, I had a clicker. I'm an idiot, thank you. You're the best. We had that discussion before I started, but I figured it out. Yeah, so that's how you make slides move, if you have a clicker. So, you know, this is a little bit of me. This is, you know, me when I was in the early 80s Bronx, when my B-boy stance rocking it real hard. And it kind of grew into a lot of different things. I was raised by my grandmother. She brought me up because my parents were drug addicted. So they were both unable to be able to take care of me. So she took me in, she kept me safe. She made sure that I was all right. And one of the things she gave me when all this stuff was kind of going on back in the early 80s was video games. So she said, you know what? Here's a way to keep you safe. I'm going to keep your ass in my house. So that made it easy to not get in trouble, made it easy to kind of be in a place of safety, and also it kind of gained my love for technology. So besides all those things, I'm a podcaster, a gamer, and also now kind of starting out to be a community manager. So I've been doing those things for a little bit of time for our show, which is myself on 1/3 of it. I have two other hosts, Sharif Jackson and Cicero Holmes. And what we do every week is we talk about video games from a kind of different perspective than you're seeing often. A lot of times it's kind of just reviews and thoughts about what games are. But we like to talk about all the things that people don't want to discuss. So when people go and talk about their games and say, you know, I don't want your politics in my games. I don't like when you mix those things together. It's gross and I don't understand how it works. It's like, it's not that hard as long as you have the conversation from a real and genuine place. You know, start from a place of not knowing, bring on people that you can talk to who know more than you do, and humble yourself a little bit and say, you know what, I don't know these things, maybe you can teach me. And that way, we can have an interesting and fun conversation about all the things that people don't want to talk about. So we talked about race, we talked about politics, we talked about sex, all those things with the foundation of talking about them with people who make games and making them, you know, human beings that they actually are. You know? So, move on a little bit. So, Spawn for Good. So, there's a lot of reasons why Spawn for Good kind of started. And I think the beauty of it was trying to figure out how we can talk about subjects and talk about giving money and giving funds back to people and to organizations and themes that were not being seen in the kind of greater gaming discussion. So gaming has done a really good job of making money. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's something that has been going on for a while, since the early 70s, and it's been great for that. It's been wonderful kind of building up people's bank accounts and kind of hopefully making some art in the meanwhile. There are a couple of really cool charities who are doing some good work, but they're kind of ignoring the greater community of gamers. They're kind of ignoring some of the things that are on the periphery, some things that affect me, affect you, and they've not necessarily touched upon those things yet. So we created Small for Good, kind of in a turbulent time. It was one that didn't really come easy because we didn't know where to start. Like most people don't know how to start something when they're trying to do something for good. They're kind of stuck and they don't know what the first step to do is. But we took our first step. Two organizations that are doing amazing work are Extra Life and Child's Play. So if you're familiar with charities and gaming, these two organizations are probably two of the ones that you'll hear about the most. They do amazing work. I'm not talking crap about them, they do great stuff. But I've always found it a little bit easier to donate money, donate funds to things that you kind of don't have to think about in a lot of ways. So it's like, okay, children are hurting, kids are in hospitals. It's an easier way or an easier thought process to get over when you're like, I need to donate some money towards this, than it is when you talk about something like Black Lives Matter, right? I love this picture. This is one of my favorite pictures of all time. Whoever took that picture, I love you. Because it speaks to my soul. So the thing that we decided to do was, we said, okay, how can we affect change in ways that a lot of people aren't even trying to even delve into yet? Can you do that in a way that makes sense? Can you do that in a way that is helpful to a cause? And how can you kind of navigate and funnel that information towards people in a reasonable way? So the first charitable event that we did, we donated money to Erica Garner, whose father was killed by police. We also donated to the New York League of Lawyers. So those folks would go out, and people who were picked up during protests, they would basically go and give them a way to get out of jail. So they would bail them out, they'd give them legal counsel, and then go out and help them out. So that was the first Spawn for Good. So we've done two so far. And we do it every Martin Luther King weekend. It's a time for people to reflect, people have social justice on their mind, and then doing it in a way that hopefully will kind of bring people together in a lot of different communities, because MLK was a dope dude. Second one that we did last year was about reproductive rights. This was an interesting one for us because our show was hosted by three men. So we decided that we were going to definitely take time and gather information and make sure that we were kind of speaking to this in a way that made a lot of sense. So we partnered with the National Network of Abortion Funds. I reached out to them directly. I said, I want to give you money. How can we do this? And they said, fine, we will take your money that you find for us. If you can get us some money, we will take it. And it was a great partnership. We got a chance to hang out with them, and we had a great kind of campaign that started with them. We streamed every MLK weekend for the whole weekend. We had a whole bunch of folks take shifts. And what we did in the beginning was we said, okay, so we're going to talk about a really hard subject. Hard charities are very difficult to raise money for. There are a lot of ins and outs. There are a lot of pinpoints that you have to touch. And there are a lot of people that you can offend if you don't do it well. And there's a lot of information you can lose. So what we do during every Spawn for Good weekend is we mix some entertainment with the games that we play, but we also take a specific amount of time to try to inform the audience about what we're trying to do. So in the first Spawn for Good, we had, during our hour breaks, we would have the names of the men and women who were lost to police violence, because we were trying to talk about police brutality in a real way. In the second one, we would have videos played from women who had abortions and had gone through processes of using reproductive rights centers in ways that benefited them, so that they could talk about their stories and let people know at home that these stories are real, and that a lot of people will be affected if these laws were passed. That reclaim Roe is Roe v. Wade is always going to be something that's going to be up for debate when people are trying to have fights and trying to figure out how they can take this necessary law down. So we had folks come on and talk about their experiences, because it's important to hear from people who are affected by what you're trying to raise money for. So, oops, what did we learn? Go back this up. So what did we learn? Gifts. Yay. Word, gifts. So we learned a couple of things. One, it takes two to make people, right? It does. You have to get all the people that you possibly can to ride with you. You need a lot of folks kind of in touch with the concept of what you're trying to do, and also trying to get them on message, trying to get everyone in the same room, which is difficult, and on page about what you're trying to convey for that weekend. It's super important. Some of the things that we actually kind of implemented right off the bat really early was making sure that everyone that you had involved had all the information that you had, and it was consistent, and everyone had the ideas already in their head about how they wanted to present their streams. So the process began with a whole bunch of email chains saying, we're going to talk about reproductive rights this year. Who wants to be down, and who's not afraid to talk about their story? If you are, we totally understand. It is not an easy subject to talk about. If you're not interested in talking about how your blackness is perceived in the world, totally fine. If there are other ways that you can help signal boost, please do that, because it's awesome, because we need a lot of people to come by and talk about what we're trying to do. So getting everybody involved in the initial phases, making sure everybody's on the same page, and giving them all the information in a way that they can share easily to other people. Two, if you've ever used any streaming services, you know that there are assholes everywhere. They are everywhere. You have no idea where you will be able to find them and get away from them, because they are everywhere. We use Twitch. If you're not familiar with Twitch, it's basically YouTube for gamers, where people are on there live and they will go and play their games, and people will have an interactive chat with them. When you're talking about really sensitive subjects, that opens up the door for assholes. So they will come in and tell you all the terrible things they want to tell you that they had in their mind and that they wrote on their bathroom wall when they were talking. And they will do that en masse. Lots of people, all the time, hitting you with terrible things. We had a whole bunch of stuff that got said in chats that I will not repeat here because I love you all. But it's also one of those things where you have to then try to figure out how are you going to keep the people who you've asked to do this thing with you safe. So, a couple things that we did. We used a service called, why can't I think of it right now? I can't think of it. It just jumped up in my head. But basically, we gave ourselves a separate chat room that folks could jump into and gripe and talk about their feelings, find themselves a safe space, make sure that they were okay, so that if anything went wrong, if they got any information or anything that they felt was going to be harmful to them, they could get out of the place that they were and be in somewhere safe. We were constantly having conversations in there. Are you okay? Have you heard anything bad today? Do you need help? Is there anything that we can do, the network or, me as the person who's helping run this thing to make you feel safe in your space? And we did that easy. The second thing that we did was, there are ways to kind of, if you're familiar with Twitter and the block list, there are ways to do that in other spaces. So we had a word list of things that could not be said. Those things got automatically filtered out of the chat. So you didn't have to worry about those things. It would be interesting to see what that list looked like and all the permutations of terrible words that you could find. And it's like ad-libs for assholes. The worst thing that you can find is that somebody made some magical compound curse word that didn't make any sense, but they put it right in the chat, and they thought it would be dope. So we got rid of that stuff. And we also sent out word beforehand of trying to make sure that everybody understood online in our channels and also through our social channels that these things would not be tolerated. The code of conduct here is amazing. We had our own for our streams and for our weekend. And the thing that when we talked about how we were going to do this, we incorporated everyone's voices into how we would kind of implement that and how to build that list up, so that everyone's ideas from all stripes were able to kind of go in and say, well, this is the thing that has bothered me, this is the thing that I have seen. I may not have seen that because I have my own privilege, so here's the thing that you should definitely be aware of and that you should be checking out for. So that helped a lot. And third, we did a lot of research, signal boosted, and shared knowledge. Again, kind of going through all the folks who streamed with us for that weekend. Everyone's had a different experience online. mine is very different from most of the women that we've had on our show or had in our group. Absolutely different. I will never experience some of the things that they've experienced. And it was important for us to make sure that those shared experiences or non-shared experiences were ones that got talked about, got discussed, and that were kind of laid on the table in a real open way so that no one was left caught off guard. And you couldn't say you didn't know. Because saying you didn't know is not okay. You have to know. You have to be aware of it. So, some of the wonderful folks that kind of hung out with us are in this slide. And we made sure, again, that we brought together a lot of different people from diverse backgrounds. Made sure that the folks who, for whatever particular topic that we were talking about for that weekend, that they had a seat at the table, and that those affected groups were able to kind of come in and share space with us and help to share their stories, because it really resonates more when you're able to tell that story yourself. And if you feel comfortable doing so, then that's even better. So, is it working? I want everyone to do the other part, but I'm not going to ask you. That would bring me so much joy. Is it working? I think so. So, Small for Good won. We raised 54 and some change. We had a 5K goal. We went over that, and the average is about $40 per donation. Small for Good 2 was a little bit less than our 5K goal, but we grew a lot in the ways that we kind of learned, and also in the ways that we were able to kind of get people together. You know, sharing things on social media is important. It's very important. During the first one, we only did about 47K in outreach and about 67K in kind of impressions. I know a lot of people don't like social media kind of metrics, but they actually mean a lot when sharing your message. It means a lot to get that stuff out. And then for Small for Good 2, we kind of double, triple that, right? Awesome. So is it working? Yes. We got a chance to work with the National Network of Abortion Funds. We got some great coverage and some big, well-known publications. And we also got to do some work with Erica Garner, who's an amazing soul. If you get a chance to follow her on Twitter, please do so. So, so what's next? It threw me way off. So we want to continue to kind of look at things that we need to kind of hit. There's a lot of social issues that are there. You can't hit everything. You have the ability to kind of do what you can in the spaces you can. But we want to make sure that people are telling us what we can do to kind of make that space better. You want to build relationships with people who are trying to do the same kind of good work that you are. So if you know folks who are doing some good work in space, don't be afraid to ask them for help, but do it in a reasonable, honest way so that people don't think you're trying to co-opt their space. That's not okay. And hopefully we can become a nonprofit, or, you know, as we just said, don't go nonprofit, so I'm not nonprofit. But it's the thing that we're thinking about. And when you get to do all that stuff, you get to have fun with stuff like this. So this is Sharif, who I think, I don't know if it's going to do it. I might not play it. But Sharif had a great time when we were doing this particular part of our show, where Rob the Robot was the person in the game, and he got to do the Rob the Robot dance. So he shook his hands and spun his head well, as much as he possibly could without hurting himself. So again, thank you guys so much. Hire me, because I'm unemployed. But these are all the places you can find our work. You can find more stuff about us. You can find more stuff about me. And it was wonderful to talk to you all tonight.